Hi, I'm Anthony Alder from Alder IP and welcome to another episode of IP. Today we're talking about software patents, and I had a fair bit of interest from inquiries and that sort of thing about what do you need for a software patent, because a software patent is kind of a little bit different to a normal patent. IP Australia has been a bit tough on software patents recently, and the reason is because as the technology evolves, it becomes harder and harder to get patents in a particular space. Part of the reason is because to get a patent, you need two things. It needs to be novel, which means those things don't exist already, and it needs to be inventive. Now, the problem with inventiveness is that it's inventiveness compared to the art and the people that are in that art. So when you're comparing inventiveness, you're not just comparing it to what normal people see, particularly with software. The thing you are comparing it to is what other IT professionals would regard as being obvious. So you merely can't just bolt a whole lot of plugins together and say that this is a new invention. It has to be something that's surprising. And a good example of this would be if I took Uber and I applied it to lawyers and called it Uber for lawyers, it's not really inventive because all I've done is taken a known process and just added some bells and whistles to it. Okay? So that I wouldn't expect to get a patent for that. But I would expect to get a patent for it if I had a new way of verification of ID on it, or some security measure, or I reduce the code to make it run faster. It's a real technical feature, and if you have a technical feature, you can get a patent for it. The other thing is some countries have a fairly strong prohibition on software patents, New Zealand being one of those. For those sort of countries, you really have to implement the software into a hardware device to get it. So quite commonly when we draft a software patent, if possible, we like to incorporate some hardware components. So if you're running a smartphone app, we sometimes talk about how the actual smartphone works and how the interoperability between the hardware components of your software, of your hardware, such as GPS, the phone, the cameras, how all they operate with the software, not just the software itself. So the main thing is when you're looking for a software patent is consider whether this actual concept that you've come up with, whether it's not obvious and it is inventive. And they're the key things that you have to consider when you're getting a software patent. I hope this is helpful. Please feel free to contact us at Alder IP. I'm more than happy to run you through some of the details about software patenting. Thanks.